Tell somebody. The Supreme Court's decision overturned nearly 50 years of legal protection of a woman's right to an abortion. Black women will be disproportionately impacted by this decision. 35% experience some form of sexual violence and even incest during their lifetime. Black women are 3 times more likely to die from pregnancy-related complications. Stand up, speak out, and we can stop this assault on women.
Good morning and welcome to the National Newspaper Publishers Association's Let It Be Known. The Divine Nine, the historically Black fraternities and sororities of the National Panhellenic Council, led by Phi Beta Sigma, are joining forces to save the lives of Black women. The influential organization said it would launch Tell Somebody, a public service campaign emphasizing the profoundly disproportionate impact of the U.S. Supreme Court's June 24th decision to overturn nearly half a century of established law under Roe v. Wade on Black women. We speak this morning with the legendary Sybil Wilkes and Sigma President Chris Ray. Good morning, Sybil Wilkes, and good morning, Chris Ray.
Good morning. Good morning, President.
Thanks for being with us. We really, really appreciate it. We know this is such a important issue, Roe v. Wade, and the implications it has, particularly on Black women and women of color. But first, tell us about the Divine Nine and why the Divine Nine felt it was vital that they start this campaign. And if you can, explain to our audience exactly what you hope to accomplish with the campaign.
Absolutely. First and foremost, good morning to everyone, and thank you so much for the opportunity for us to speak about this very important issue. The Men of Phi Beta Sigma came up with the idea of making sure that we stood in the gap for women, specifically Black women, sitting back and realizing that there were always PSAs that were talking about the Roe v. Wade issue, but the demographics that they were advertising about or speaking about did not look like us. So again, representation matters. But then also being an organization that has 99% of our membership are African Americans, we realize that this issue impacts our community, our mothers, our aunts, our sisters, so forth and so on. So what we decided to do was say we're going to do something about it and pull together our resources to put together what we believe is an impactful PSA that tells the story of issues and challenges that we know is taking place in communities, not only just in Black communities, but all communities, but we know that it disproportionately impacts us more. And so, of course, then, as I normally do, being the youngest president of the Divine Nine, of the Council of Presidents, I tend to have a little bit more energy. So, of course, I go to
Wait a minute.
So I go to my slightly more seasoned counterparts, and I shared with them what we were doing, and that I wanted to get their support on this journey. And we're still continuing to have robust conversations about it. But yes, I'm very excited about it.
Well, Chris, thanks. And Sybil, as a Black woman, you hear this Black man, a Black organization, the fraternity, speak up and stand up.
Yeah.
How powerful is that? And what does that mean for Black women to see Black men stand up for them in this way?
Well, I think that we have always become accustomed to that. I think that a part of the secret that we don't expose enough is that Black men have always stood there with us. They've always stood in the gap. They've always stood beside us. Sometimes they stand behind us and support us. But it is empowering, particularly in this issue, where Black women are most profoundly affected by this decision that's been handed down by the Supreme Court. And as the president has said, it's time for us to all come together and to talk about this issue when Black women play such an important part in so much of our lives in terms of politics and social justice and all of this. So to have this organization, Phi Beta Sigma, stand and say, we want to do something, we want to be heard and help you be heard regarding this particular topic, that's everything. And it really does just put a spotlight on the partnerships that we have already, but to really let the world know we're all in this together. And these Black men are standing there and they want the world to know that we are not being treated fairly in this area of reproductive rights. Let's do something.
Yeah, and Sybil, considering the unique experiences for Black women and what they go through, what you go through, what does this specifically mean for Black women that this Supreme Court would overturn such a landmark piece of legislation, and why are the stakes so high for Black women?
Well, we can go back almost 10 years where you look at the 2013 Supreme Court, where they gutted the Voting Rights Act, right? And we see that they have no good intention towards Black folks. And I will just say that very plainly. And I've learned from my previous life with Tom Jordan just to speak my mind. So I can tell you that they don't mean Black people any good. And the Republican senators, quite honestly, packed the court and made it so that it would lead up to this. They've been working on this for over 50 years. That's before Roe versus Wade even came down, they've been working on this, right? To pack all the courts and the state legislatures to make this happen. So knowing how they feel about us and let us pray for the Supreme Court justice that's about to take the bench, the great KBJ. So knowing all of this, we knew that our work was cut out for us. And like I said, having this partnership with Phi Beta Sigma and the Divine Nine, this means everything, that we are all in this together and recognizing that whether it's voting rights or reproductive rights, we have our work cut out for us and we have to tell somebody now. And that means that is the name of this PSA. And that means calling your U.S. senators and telling them, we want you to relax the filibuster rules. Or more importantly, along with that, November 8th, get to the polls and vote.
Yeah, and Chris, listening to that and the importance of it all, and there are so many challenges, right? Putting this together, can you talk about any challenges you had and really getting this together? And now you're at the stage. Jennifer Lewis is doing the narration. Talk about any challenges you had and any pushback, if you will.
Oh wow. Well, that's a great question. And so when you first talk about this particular issue, it's very polarizing on both sides. From members of our organization that question, should we even be in this conversation, to leaders saying, well, should we even should we expend resources to do this? Are we in the right lane? We're Black men. Should we be doing this? So it was a lot of discussion on it. But I think that, and as a leader, you have to sit back, you have to listen to both sides. Even though you may have, strong feelings about it, the right thing to do is to make sure that you listen to everyone. But at the end of the day, we were able to get not only our national board to the table to expend the resources to do this, but begin to have conversations with other groups that are very similar to us to say that we got to get in the fight. You got to be uncomfortable. You have to be all right with getting in good trouble. That's the cloth we're cut from. And sometimes as D9 organizations in the past, we were looked upon as organizations that we were somewhat removed from the issues. We would do some community service, but not enough to get our hands dirty. But I think that the next generation of leaders that are coming recognize that the issues you just can't do a surface level engagement. we have to be a lot deeper now. We have to be able to create the entities that are going to allow for us to play in this game that no longer requires just us doing community service. We now have to have our own political action committees. We now have to have 501c3s that allow for us to receive resources to be able to do this good work. And so we are continuously evolving to recognize that our role and place in our community is really at a higher level, but we have to make sure that we're using all the tools necessary to fight the challenges that continuously are put in front of us. And so, we there were some challenges, but here we are, and I'm excited about it.
And despite the uproar and the anger that this decision brought publicly, quiet as that's kept, right? It's still a taboo subject in our community, right? And so when you broach this, I can only imagine that there may have been some eyes rolling, Sybil, a little bit, right?
Well, certainly, even in the creation of this PSA, and I'm just happy that, my company, which is an all-Black female company, with the exception of a really couple strong Black men, we were able to come forth and produce this piece for Phi Beta Sigma and the Divine Nine, and talking about these things, even among women. It's not just, talking to Black men. It's even among women, it is a difficult subject to approach. And especially when you think about, and that's maybe part of the problem, because we don't want to talk about it, but we don't want to talk about, 1 in 2 Black women are going to be sexually harassed or be in some sort of sexual violence situation in their lives. And it may be with somebody in their own family before they are the age 18. Also, in terms of, and all of these things are touched on in a 60-second promo. But you talk about sexual violence against our children. You talk about date rape in this, and then you get to the point where you're talking about a woman who is having a baby, and there are difficulties in this, and the statistics regarding Black women and maternity and their mortality. Is just ridiculous. And so all of these things are touched on in this PSA. Tell somebody now. But as the president said, sometimes you just don't want to, we don't want to touch that. We'll
a lot of times, right?
We'll put some money on it. And if we can, but to come full forward and say, this is why Black women are most affected by this. And this is why we must fight for this. And this is why we have to get our senators on board to relax the filibuster rules and change the ways so that our reproductive rights can be returned to us without having to send us to states where that are still allowing this to happen.
Yeah, and how does and that goes to both of you, because somebody has the answer. How does abortion access? How does that positively affect Black women to having that access?
No. Well. I mean, let me quickly jump in and say, it's a very personal decision, right? I'll never have the honor to bring life into the world. But what I do know is, in having conversations with many women, it's such a personal decision that allows for them to make the best choices necessary for them in their health. I mean, sometimes this is really about their health, where they're in a position where they know that they can be impacted because they have pre-existing conditions that may not allow for them to carry a baby to term. And they have to make those hard decisions, right? Or the fact that they may be in a situation where they may not be in the best position and their circumstance doesn't allow for them to be able to move forward with the pregnancy. So I think that them having the ability to make the decision allows for a even greater just peace of mind. I mean, it's when you just think about the mental exercise that I'm sure that women have to go through in navigating this process. But a part of why we decided to get involved too is because sometimes that decision doesn't have to be made alone, right? It is about conditioning a generation of men to understand that you are sometimes getting into relationships with individuals that may have gone through that sexual trauma. And so a part of this is conditioning and making our brothers and our members know that you have to be a little bit more sensitive, or you may have to peel back some more layers about your partner that you're with, or you and your partner may be in a situation where you all have to make this decision, and she doesn't have to do it by herself now. Because why? Because you've been educated on it by your member, by your organization, to be, whether it's to be more attentive, to be more sensitive, to be more engaging on it, so that together you all can make the best decision for your family, for her health potentially, and whatever circumstances that you guys find yourself in.
Yeah, and there are so many implications here. Can you speak, Sybil or Chris, to the economic and social implications that have and will result from the Supreme Court's decision?
Well, let me just say this. We just observed Black Women's Equal Pay Day.
Yes.
We know that it has taken some 600 days, 365 days out of 2021, and 279 days in 2022 for Black women to make what white non-Hispanic men made in 2021. So that tells you we're already behind the 8 ball. This year, Black women make 58 cents on the dollar compared to white men. And last year was 63 cents. So you see the decline there. And so when you're talking about telling women how to run their lives and that they will help you, knowing full well that the government is, the state governments are not always capable or willing to do to carry out their promises. The economics, with us already being behind the 8 ball, and then to have this and talk about the child care and the all of this and clothing and feeding a child, sometimes alone, indicates that to take away choices, and as the president has said, this is the most difficult choice you'll ever make in your life. This is, and unless you have somebody there with you as you're going through that process, as well as if you decide to continue with the pregnancy and to have somebody with you, the economics, the mental health of it all, everything plays a part. And we are already, and I can't say this enough, and I will say it again, we're already behind the 8 ball, and we have to give people an out and give somebody an exit, if you will, President, to get off of this running mill of, like the hamster wheel of feeling as though we're not heard, as though we're not being listened to, as if we're not being supported. And it all plays a part in this whole process in taking away our reproductive services. Even think about this, and then I'll stop talking because I know I talk a lot.
Go on.
but think about this. In those services, in many towns where they are taking away women's health services, those facilities, they don't just provide the termination.
That's right.
Right? They don't just provide doing away with the pregnancy. What they also provide are physical exams every 6 months, every year, whenever you need them, whenever you require them. They provide that, and they also provide the facilities and the connections to people to help you in your mental health. They're worried about your physical health, but they also have the connections to help you with your mental health. And I'm telling you, mental health is, as we know, is everything. And we need that help. And it's being taken away from us very steadily, or at least access to it.
Yeah, and Sybil mentioned too about being behind the 8 ball. And one of the many reasons why Black women are behind the 8 ball is because historically, right, Chris, they've been seen as breeders. And so whatever goes on with Black women is the same thing when you look at, Black women and girls being abused. It often goes, the media doesn't shine a spotlight on it. They're supposed to be built to take that somehow. Yeah. This is a big part of the problem, right, Chris?
I will tell you, conditioning in our community has been going on for a long time. even in just subtle ways on how we, to what you just said, Black women are strong women. And what ends up happening is that we keep on having the connotation that they are, that they can take more than everyone else, and they should be able to endure more than everyone else. And a lot of that has come over time. It has come over time from when they brought us over in ships to how they viewed us as human beings, less than humans, to half of a human, to eventually us getting some semblance of rights. And the reality is that you have generations of communities, of populations who, or of other races who see us, especially our Black women, and less than the human beings that they are. And we just have to continue to do a better job of recognizing that we have our own challenges, right? We have our own. They have their challenges, and a lot of that has been created because of the societies in which we live in. And now, no longer should we stand up and be able to say, I'm going to allow you to take these rights from not only this sect of women, because we recognize that it's going to create a huge impact in their in our community, and it's just not right.
Yeah, and Sybil, this PSA, tell somebody now. And even this conversation, talk about why it's important, because a lot of times, and Greer, our producer, was mentioning this too, that there's still a lot of Black people who say, well, that has nothing to do with us. It has nothing to do with me, Roe v. Wade. Talk to those individuals, if you will.
Yeah, that's a sad commentary that and I think it is due to a lack of education. It's not ignorance, it is a lack of education, because once again, we don't talk about how these things affect us until it's too late. And Roe versus Wade empowered women to have more control over their bodies. And as you mentioned, having the history of Black women regarded as breeders. As the president talked about, people seeing us as less than if they see us at all. Mm-hmm. And so we have to educate, and we have to give history lessons, and we have to have conversations. And in these conversations, that's where we have the history lessons, and also to let young people know that this has everything to do with you and your freedom and your future. Yeah. And it's sometimes an uncomfortable conversation at a difficult time when you may be up against the wall and you may need the services that Roe versus Wade has taken away. But it's incumbent upon us as elders to, and some younger elders, such as President. But it's really important that we have these discussions with our young men and our young women, especially, to let them know that every decision that comes out regarding this has something to do with us. It does. Yeah, you may not see it that way, and Lord knows what we saw were a lot of white women who were empowered when this decision came down, and they made big changes in the state of Kansas, for instance. Mm-hmm. But it is more important that Black people know what Roe versus Wade means and what it means that it can and cannot mean for your life and your future. And we have to tell them.
Okay. I just gotta say that we have to remember, if you're going to live in this country, then we're going to need to be all the way in, right? Every decision that comes down from the Supreme Court impacts us as citizens of this nation. And we can't sit back and pretend that none of it does. Because as someone who's had the opportunity to be in the legal space and see how one decision in one case can be the thread to many other decisions, right? We enjoy many privileges today from a case that had nothing to do with the privilege you now have today. But having individuals to be able to intertwine that thread, to be able to make the case. And so we are a part of all of that, and we have to be all the way in. This country, you can't be in this nation and think that we can just carve out ourselves and just say, well, that's them, and that doesn't deal with us. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way, and we can't condition ourselves to think that way. We have to always be vigilant, standing watch, and identifying and seeing what the angle is, right? Because there's always an angle, and we have to be mindful of that. Whether it's our generation and us teaching the generation that's coming, or those listening to the ones who taught us, there is always an angle. Make no mistake about it.
That's right. Whether you're playing pool or you're playing politics, there's always an angle. Right?
Somebody's always playing. An angle. Wow. And you know, you talk about the campaign encourages folks to contact their Congress people, and you talk about voting. Folks, there's some folks who will say, well, you know, this happened. There's nothing you could do about it now. You know, our votes didn't matter before, or they'll go this way. We said this, I believe at the top, you know, Black women obviously push the president and over the top, push Biden over the top. It wasn't for the Black women vote, he would not have been president right now. It wasn't for the Black women vote, he would the Senate would not be favored Democrat. And so they're wondering, well, what are we getting for our vote? So when it comes to this, that question comes up as well. It's done, and nothing we can do about it. What do you say in response?
I say you're absolutely wrong, respectfully. This is what we have now. Sorry about that. What we have now is a momentum. What we have is, you saw what happened in 2020 with the presidency and the vice presidency. You saw what happened with a Senate with more power with more power added to the Democratic side. And what you see now are young Black men and women who understand that our work has just begun.
That's right.
And if we say that our vote doesn't count, then shame on you, because you're ignoring the history of all those people who gave their lives. And I don't want to be, you know, condescending by saying shame on you, but shame on you, and let's do better and learn our history, and let's get out there and vote. And it's happening. Because if you listen to, you know, I do news every day. We have a newsletter in addition to this, and it's called What You Need to Know, by the way. But if you listen to the news every day and you're hearing about, and I live in Texas, so you know, it's really, it's a daunting residency. This is not, you know, what I'm used to. I'm from Chicago. I'm used to, you know, being on the side of winners. But if you listen to the news and how 1 million people in the state of Texas have registered in advance of this election, and you look at other states, and you look at Georgia, which is just on the precipice of such greatness, of returning Raphael Warnock to the Senate, and Stacey Abrams becoming governor, and all of these things that could happen. We have to not turn our backs, but we have to turn forward to the problem, which is voter suppression. And we have to fight the way people gave their lives before in order to make this change and continue the progress.
Yeah. And Chris, what does it mean to have someone like Jennifer Lewis as the voice over the narrator for this? I mean, how big was that?
Oh my gosh. First, let me tell you, Jennifer, if you're looking at this, we love you. We thank you. We appreciate you so much. You know, having her voice, I mean, she not only does she represent us well, and when I say that, represent the culture well, she's always been an activist, understanding what that in the positions that she has, she still has work to be done. And what Jennifer Lewis reminds me of is she's sending a subtle message to all of us that no matter how high you rise, no matter what opportunities you're afforded, you still have a responsibility to make sure that you are literally using your talents to make the path clearer for your community and bringing the next generation along. That's who we are. That's what she's represented. And I'm just so grateful to her for standing in the gap, you know, using her talent for us, because it made it even more powerful. And it really just, every individual, when we got the the video, and every woman that I showed it to, there was women that cried when they saw it. It was some that when they heard Jennifer Lewis's voice, it was like, oh my gosh, like, is that Jennifer Lewis? I mean, just to know that we were able to get her to do it, but then also just the messaging behind it, that we all got a role to play, because it's not equal. And I always say this: I don't care if you're a Republican or a Democrat. What I need to know is that, are you serious about making sure that everybody has a fair shake? And if you or your party can't demonstrate that, then you can't get our support. I don't want you to talk in platitudes. I need you to demonstrate in your role as an elected individual. And listen, I used to be the former mayor of a city, so I get it. I know that I couldn't wake up in the morning and say that I'm just doing this for Black folks. I had to do it for all folks. And I need to be able to showcase that. But I understood that in my role as a mayor, that I had to open up doors for everybody, because there were many doors that were closed that was only for specific individuals in our community. And that's not the way to. So whether you're a Republican or a Democrat and you're seeing this, or you're going to see this, we need to see your body of work as it relates to making sure that everybody is getting a fair shake. And if you can't do that, then we're going to rock with whoever's going to give us that. That's the message that you need to understand in this next generation of what's coming. If it's either all of us, or we're going to come and get you and move and go ahead on and vote you out.
And so that is really the message, right, Sybil, that when someone calls their congressperson, their representative, that's what they should tell them?
Yeah, absolutely. We want you to know that because, we have been a part of the process to put you where you are. And as the president has said, that has a nice ring to it, going from mayor to president, by the way. But I do want people to understand that your vote counts as well as your voice. And
that's right.
What we always do in our newsletter, what I learned from Tom Joyner, is that if you have questions, we will help answer them by pointing you in the right direction. And that means letting everybody know everyone has 2 senators in your state.
That's right.
No state has more or less. Everybody in the Senate is represented in their state by 2 people. And we'll let you know what's the number to call, what's the email address to use in order to call. And we don't give you an excuse. Well, I don't know. I don't have. No, we will give you that information and tell them we want you to relax the filibuster rules so that this vote regarding the returning reproductive rights on a national platform, on a national basis, should be passed.
Wow. It's all about this is all about the filibuster. I mean, make no mistake about it. This is all about the filibuster and recognizing that there are serious legislation that impacts our community that's being held up because of the filibuster. The John Lewis, the John Lewis voting rights, and that's something that's not only dear to us as members of Phi Beta Sigma, who John Lewis was also a member, but the mere fact of knowing what it can do for the entire nation. Then there's the George Floyd Policing Act. Again, as a Black man, I am, I'm in a place where I'm always when I'm driving, looking in my rearview mirror and hoping that this isn't going to be my day. Because why? Because there are laws that are out there that are not there to protect me in a nation that I pay taxes, that I live in, that I'm, that is supposed to be, equal for all of us, but you're demonstrating that based on the fact that, the laws aren't representing that. And the reason why we don't have it is because of the filibuster, and it needs to be relaxed in order for us to make sure we're passing the right legislation that's going to impact all people. All of us need to be protected, not just a few.
That's right.
Yeah, Sybil, although you do not in any way look like you've been around a long time, with Tom Joyner and you mentioned a newsletter, but before I ask you to give us more information on the newsletter that you do, so that more people will be aware of it, when you've seen a lot, you've covered a lot, have you seen politics the way it is today? Many people say democracy is either threatened or democracy is dead. Have you seen it this bad before?
I've never I've never seen it like this. And it saddens me that the Tom Jordan show ended in 2019, and just at that point where things really got crazier. But I'm not, and you know, my mom passed away many years ago, and she engaged me in my love of politics and pushed me in that direction. And I've never said this before, but I'm kind of glad she's no longer here to see this, because this is the kind of thing that she lived through a lot. But this is something I wouldn't want her pulling her little hairs out over all of this and the craziness that we are seeing every day. But I'm also jazzed by the fact that we have a challenge, and I like a challenge. And our challenge and our working orders, our marching orders, they're there for us to make a difference. Whether it is calling our senators and letting them know they need to relax the filibuster rules, or encouraging people in their politics and in their ability to represent people and working on campaigns and things like that, and to bring about a new democracy, if you will, or a democracy that really covers the entire landscape of America. That's what I'm excited about. But I got to tell you, sir, I have never, ever seen this. A situation like this before.
And that says a whole lot, because again, Sybil has covered so much, and we really appreciate all you have done. And Chris, well, before Chris, let me go back to you for a second, Sybil. You mentioned a newsletter. How do we find? How do we follow you now?
Sybil Wilkes is Sybil like the crazy girl, Wilkes like John Wilkes Booth, and that's just easier for a lot of people. It's SYBILWILKES on all social media platforms. Also, we have a newsletter. We started this before the Tom Jordan Morning Show ended. And then we got fired in that next venture, but we kept the newsletter going, and it's called What You Need to Know. And we super serve the African-American community, as we learned from Tom Joyner. And so it's a free subscription. It is absolutely free Monday through Friday. Just give us your name and your email address, and we'll have it in your email box first thing. Go to sybilwilkes.com. And as I said, email address and your name, and we'll have it in your email box. And my company, Yossi Media, that my best friend and I created, had the opportunity to produce this video. So we're doing a number of things, and we have a lot of balls up in the air, but it's all based upon the passion to inform and empower people. And we were just really glad and humbled by the trust that the men of Phi Beta Sigma and the Divine Nine members gave us to put this PSA together.
Awesome. And Chris, the PSA folks will be asking, when can I see it? When, what? Give us some details.
Well, if they get an opportunity, please go to all of our social media outlets at PBS_1914, whether it's on Twitter, whether it's on Instagram, and on Facebook, and the PSA is there. PBS_1914. You'll be able to see it. It's connected to our YouTube page, and then you'll be able to encourage individuals to please share it. Share it.
Yeah, absolutely. The legendary Sybil Wilkes and Phi Beta Sigma President Chris Wray. We certainly appreciate you stopping by the Black Press of America this morning. You guys, much success, and come back and see us again. We certainly, the invitation is wide open.
Thank you so much. And always a pleasure to be out there. And thank you, President Wray, for all that you do.
No, thank you. And thank you for the inspiration. And I'm just excited. I'm on with Sybil Wilkes. So let me just tell you, my life has come full circle.
And yay for Black Press, because we would not be here without you.
Listen, so let me tell you.
195 years.
And that's what we do. The work continues.
It continues. As Dr. Chavis says, the struggle continues. So
amen.
That's right. There you go.
I'm sorry. Let me just say to Dr. Chavis, another good Phi Beta Sigma man. Just thought I would ease that in there. Okay.
I'm sure please give him my best, because he's always been so good to us and in our years with the Tom Jordan Morning Show too. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining. Let it be known. We'll see you next week.
Thank you.